Scene script. Have you ever been stood up for a date? The anticipation, the nerves, the excitement, all for nothing. Not a great feeling, is it? This, my friends, is the dreaded stand-up. It's a scenario where you find yourself all dressed up, waiting at a restaurant or a bar, checking your watch every few minutes, and realizing with a sinking heart that your date is not going to show up. It's like being the punchline of a cruel joke, isn't it? You've spent hours preparing, choosing the perfect outfit, rehearsing conversation topics, and even practicing your best charming smile in front of the mirror. But instead of a romantic evening, you're left alone with a basket of breadsticks and a side of humiliation. Now, you might think you're alone in this, but trust me, you're not. Getting stood up is more common than you'd imagine. In fact, it's almost a rite of passage in the modern dating world. But let's lighten the mood a bit, shall we? Let me share a little story with you. Picture this. A man, let's call him John, finds himself stood up at a swanky restaurant. He's been waiting for an hour. The candles have burned low, and the wine has lost its chill. But instead of wallowing in self-pity, John strikes up a conversation with the waiter. They laugh, they chat, they share stories. And before he knows it, John's having a great time. He's forgotten all about his date who never showed. And the best part, he forms an unexpected friendship with the waiter who, as it turns out, shares John's love for vintage motorcycles and 90s rock bands. So, what's the moral of the story? Well, it's that even in disappointing situations, there might be a silver lining, a chance to make a new friend, a chance to enjoy your own company, a chance to turn an unfortunate situation into a memorable night. So, the next time you're left alone at a restaurant, remember our friend here. You never know who you might meet. Ever heard of the saying, every cloud has a silver lining? Well, it applies to dating too. Being stood up might feel like a punch to the gut, but there's a silver lining to it that you might not have considered. Yes, you heard me right. A silver lining to being stood up. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But hear me out. First off, it gives you an early insight into the other person's character. If they can't even muster the courtesy to cancel a date, then it's a pretty clear sign that they aren't reliable. It's better to find this out early on, rather than waste weeks or even months, becoming emotionally invested in someone who doesn't value your time. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, being stood up can be a powerful lesson in self-worth. When we're stood up, it's easy to fall into the trap of self-doubt, questioning our own value. But here's the thing. Your worth is not defined by someone else's inability to see it. Allow me to share a personal story. A few years back, I was stood up by someone I was really excited to meet. I waited for an hour, checking my phone every 2 minutes. But they never showed. It was a blow, I won't lie. But it also made me realize something. I was worth more than waiting around for someone who couldn't even bother to send a text. I decided then and there that I wouldn't let anyone else dictate my self-worth. I would not be the guy who waits for an hour, hoping for a text that never comes. I would be the guy who knows his worth and doesn't settle for anything less. So next time you get stood up, don't wallow in self-pity. Instead, look for that silver lining. It might just be the wake-up call you need to realize your own worth. And that, my friends, is a priceless lesson. If you're enjoying this video and our dating misadventures, do consider subscribing. We promise it's less painful than being stood up. Here on our channel, we not only share the good, the bad, and the funny of dating, but we also provide a space where we can all laugh, learn, and grow together. So hit that subscribe button and join our community. You'll be the first to know when we release a new video, and who knows? You might just pick up a few dating tips along the way. Now let's dive back into the world of dating. Okay, so you've been stood up. How do you deal with the aftermath? First things first, it's essential to remember not to take it personally. Yes, it's disappointing, and yes, it might sting a bit, but it's not a reflection on you as a person. When someone stands you up, it speaks volumes about them and their character, not yours. They are the ones who've missed out on getting to know you. Think of it this way. Imagine you're a delicious, mouth-watering chocolate cake. Now, some people might not like chocolate cake. Does that make the cake any less scrumptious? Absolutely not. It just means that it's not to their taste. Similarly, you are still the same amazing individual, regardless of whether someone decided to show up for a date or not. Next, use this as a learning experience. Life is full of ups and downs, and every experience, good or bad, teaches us something. Perhaps this experience is teaching you to be more discerning in who you choose to date. Or maybe it's showing you that you're stronger than you think. Whatever the lesson, take it on board and use it as a stepping stone to better things. Don't let this deter you from future dating. Just because one person didn't show up doesn't mean that everyone else will do the same. There are plenty of fish in the sea, as they say, and the right one is out there, waiting to meet you. So dust yourself off, put on your favorite outfit and get back out there. And finally, remember to keep things in perspective. In the grand scheme of things, this is just a tiny blip on the radar. Sure, it's not the most pleasant blip, but it's not a catastrophe either. So take a deep breath, give yourself a pep talk, and move on. Remember, one bad date does not define your dating life. You are so much more than a single disappointing experience. Keep your chin up, keep smiling, and most importantly, keep being you. Because you, my friend, are pretty darn awesome. So, we've laughed, we've cried, and we've learned a thing or two about being stood up. Let's take a quick stroll down memory lane. We've journeyed through the dreaded stand-up, where we've seen that being stood up is, well, quite a universal experience. It's happened to the best of us, and it's probably going to happen again. But remember, it's not the end of the world. Then we discovered the silver lining. Yes, even in a situation as bleak as being stood up, there's always something to gain. Maybe it's a funny story to share, or perhaps a lesson in self-love and resilience. We've also delved into dealing with the aftermath. We've learnt that it's okay to feel disappointed, but it's important not to let one bad experience define our self-worth or our future dating endeavors. And now, here we are, at the end of our journey. If you've enjoyed this roller coaster ride, and if you've found value in our little chat, then do us a favor. Go ahead and smash that like button. It helps us a lot. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more stories, advice, and laughter lined up for you. So here's to better dating experiences, and remember, if you're ever stood up, make friends with the waiter.